right, hey guys, welcome back to season two of Bring the House Down. Today I have with me,
Suzi Analog.
yes, and today Susie's here, just to, explain like her career and like, going into like electronic music and everything. And I wanted to ask, like, how did your start in music begin? Like, what is your musical background? Like, do you have any influences? Like, explain your artistry.
Okay, well, I started making music when I was a kid at 9 years old, and I started producing my own beats, like arranging it with computers and recording at 15. I actually started recording my own music when I was 9. I was recording my songs just like with the microphone up to the speaker of the keyboard, things like that. But I actually started working with a digital audio workstation when I was 15. And then when I went to Temple University, undergraduate, I was studying communications and I just started recording my own music because I had gotten a laptop and it was the first time I ever had a laptop. So I was mobile and I was able to actually work on music more often. So that was freshman year of college. And from there, I started to share my recordings online. At the time, the platform was called MySpace. So I would share my recordings on MySpace. And then I started to gain a following. Like a lot of different people started to follow me that, like, we know now a lot of different recording artists. Um, and I got signed to a label in Europe, in Amsterdam, by sophomore year of college. And I was able to record my first vinyl, like music for a vinyl, by like junior year. And then it came out like after I graduated, like senior year, but it takes a while. At that time, it always takes a while to like actually release something. It takes time from when you first record it. Especially if you work with a label. So I recorded with another femme-identified producer, Georgia Ann Muldrow, and my first final came out in 2011. But before that, I had put out mixtapes and stuff. While in between that time of like waiting for the vinyl to come out, I was putting out like mixtapes, and I had like a critically acclaimed mixtape called The Next Tape, and I was putting out other beat tapes and recordings and mixes, and starting to tour internationally in Europe and stuff. So everything just kept growing and unfolding like naturally. It was very organic.
Wait, so were you touring like during your senior year of like college?
Yeah, I was definitely touring stateside. Actually, I did my senior year, the first semester of my senior year, which actually was I lived for 6 months in Tokyo. My university had a campus in Japan, in Tokyo, TU, Japan, Temple University, Japan. So by that time, I was already recording like known recording artists in Philadelphia, like young, people knew I was young and up and coming, but I was still able to experiment and I had peers and stuff. So when I went to Japan, I was able to connect with different artists and labels there. And so like the word was spreading across like back to Philly and even to LA, where I was starting to connect with some artists that the label that I met called Jazzy Sport, the Japanese label, they were starting to put out different beat tapes and projects from producers from the underground beat scene that I knew in Los Angeles. And then those artists were actually coming over to Tokyo while I was still there. So it was like this organic stuff that was happening, but I was still in school. Like, yes, I was still in college during this time.
Wait, no, well, that's really cool managing to like, balance like I guess the school life and also music life. So no, that's really impressive. And like I also wanted to ask, like, I know that you're doing communication, but were you taking like any, I guess, like music classes on the side or just like continuing with music during college?
I just continued from the school to the streets during the time. I mean, so I did not take any music classes at my university. I actually just integrated myself within the music community of Philadelphia, which is very rich and historical, especially to modern music, with the sound of Philadelphia, which is basically like Philly's own Motown. A lot of musicians came from that, The Roots, bands like The Roots, and uh, I was around a lot of artists and even got to regularly attend the Roots studio. They would have listening parties, they would just have like hangouts. I started meeting producers. The producers that were working on their records were some of the first producers to give me like sound packs that I could like go back home and make beats with. So I was just like very social within the scene um of music in Philadelphia itself. And I met all the DJs and I was always going to shows. And so that was really my education, in addition to like my formal education I was getting from school, which it supported going after a communications degree supported what I was into musically because I was able to like write papers about like people I was meeting or like interview people I was meeting and things like that. So I just made it work. But I didn't formally study music by that point. I mean I did, I guess I left this out, but growing up I received a lot of my classical and traditional education through my public school system. So I traditionally received a lot of training from my public school education. I was like classically trained vocally, starting a young age, like my teachers integrated me in programs to learn to sing operatically and also choir, church choir, things like that, like community based. So I was performing a lot before I even went to college. I was actually like heavily performing. I wrote plays, and th- did competition theater. I was in musical theater. So like that all was happening. I was always receiving a training in addition to going home. When I would go home as a kid, I would go record music as well. So it all added up to that point.
And speaking of music, like what kind of music would you like produce or make? Would it be like out of like dance or like club or like tech, like whatever genre? Is it like genre blending of something or experimental?
So you're asking, how would I describe my music?
Yeah.
How I would describe my music, it's electronic music, but it's inspired by hip hop, R&B, soul, um, and the traditional uh techniques of techno and house, which is really just all like Black modern music technology, and musical innovations. I'm inspired by all of it. I try not to think so much genre wise. I identify with the storylines of the music that has preceded me. And so, of course, R&B makes sense to me. Blues makes sense because that's what my grandparents, great grandparents were listening to. Like that's what I get inspired by. Melodically and rhythmically, I get inspired by hip hop, techno, house, even drum and bass, things like that. But I don't think like, oh, I'm making this genre. I just kind of think about how it fits in my storyline as a person, like as a human, and like coming to bringing cultures together.
And is that like just the story you want to tell through music? Is that the type of impact you want to leave?
Yes, I want to show and express the unification of just humanity, like through my music, instead of thinking of music so commercially, because I do truly believe that music is it's a gift, it's an experience that is beyond, it goes beyond just being commercial or capitalistic. Like it's actually an experience that we've been gifted to be able to live and improve our lives. Like we have music to work to, or like we have music to dance to, cry to, laugh to. And like we need those things, whether it's a number one record or not. We're going to need sound. We're going to need music if we have the privilege to have hearing, to listen to music. We're going to need music to get us through life. So I try to use my music to show the connections between everything, that everything's not so far apart, or we don't have to like, just because genres were invented, we don't have to really conform to those. We could just think about music as its own thing and have an experience. If a lot of people say my music makes them do different things, like, oh, this made me want to dance, or um I couldn't stop nodding my head, or like recently, some of my more recent music, people were like, I'm dancing, but I want to cry at the same time. And I want that for people because that's what it is for me. Like, I'm trying to give you an experience to take to positively affects your body and remind you like that you're a person and you have feelings, that you could feel, that you don't have to be caught up in a routine of life, that you could take a moment and listen to something and like get outside your head and reclaim your body. So being able to connect genres, it's all about that freedom that I want to share with people.
I love that. I love that message that you're trying to spread. It's kind of like I guess, a connection to the mind, body, and soul
Hmm.
almost. And like, I also wanted to ask, like, when you are creating your music, what like mindset are you in? Like, what type of mindset do you get into? Like, what is the process behind it?
Before I even create the music, I have an idea of like what I'm going for. I try to take into account what I haven't done artistically before and try to push myself to go into a different direction that I haven't gone into before. I even like take notes. I write down song titles. Sometimes I write down song titles because the word that I'm thinking of might evoke the sound that I go for, like energetically, whether it's a word that's like deep, I might make like a deep sounding beat, or like something fun, or I might make something uplifting and fun. So I take my experiences in real life and I sit down and I start to make my music with those notes in mind. Like I actually take notes on my life and then I try to um notate that through music.
That's cool. And do you maybe want to give like an example from like, I guess, any experiences from your life that kind of like, I guess, transition onto your music?
Yeah, like for example, one night I was out at my friend's birthday party and I went to the bathroom, and I guess just how the building was set up, the sound traveled a certain way. So I think they were playing a Frank Ocean song, and it was like the intro, and the intro was just like meandering, and it was just like slow, but when it came through the wall, because I was in the bathroom, it sounded so different, so trippy, and I was just like, wow, this is so beautiful. Like it was muffled, but it still sounded beautiful.
Mhm.
And I was just having this kind of like epiphany. And I was like, I want to make an intro like that. So on my song Louder, on my project Zones Volume 4, I have a song called Louder. And the intro is, it represents the feeling that I had, this kind of euphoric feeling that I had that night when I heard the sound coming through the wall. And then it drops into another beat.
Oh, great. That's so cool. And like, do you maybe want to go into like any projects of yours that like, I guess, kind of what is it, relate to when you were just talking about that story, or like
Yeah.
besides, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, so yeah, my project series Zones is a direct representation of how I approach music, with using my life as like a real source material and my experiences in life as real source material, and then turning that into actual music. Those songs I call moods. Like I call that project an audio visual mood board because for a majority of the project, every track that I made, there was also a visual guide that went to it. And it wasn't really about aesthetics as much as it was about like just bringing you into like some of the abstract thoughts in my head that I see when I'm like creating the sound, or how the visuals can impact the sound. I experience synesthesia, so I see visuals with sounds, and it's just nonstop, but I am able to still focus my mind and all. But uh, I can see like the different direction and massive sound. So I just try to make music with zones that gives you that feeling and that's very kinetic and visceral. And so all of the tracks in the Zone series, zones one, two, three, and four represent that. It's 44 tracks because each project has 11 tracks. And then we made an ultimate compilation of that project with a vinyl called Infinite Zones that I released in 2022. And so that kind of has some of the best tracks of the Zone series on it. And um and then yeah, I just keep everything going. Now my most recent project's called Ones. So you see zones, infinite zones, ones, like I'm like setting up this world. Also like the way words sound is kind of important to my music. So like I'm just keeping these themes going. It's all a part of the art and the sound that I try to bring to life.
And like, does that also go into, like, I guess, like the visuals like you include for like when it comes to your music?
Yeah, totally. I think all of my visuals have been experimental. I haven't done like a big, I mean, I've had some shoots that are kind of like, shooting, especially like in LA where you work with like a team and they've worked on films and stuff, or like I had a visual with it was one of the creative directors of like a Katy Perry video and stuff before. But that was like for a collaborative project I have with Toki Monster called Analog Monster. But for my own music, all my visuals have been independent and DIY. So I get to explore a lot with just adding just cuts and colors and textures and just tries to bring you into like what's going on in my head through my visuals as well.
And does that include like when you do performances?
Yeah, totally. I just gave one of my biggest performances to date. It's called By Any Means Sonically, and it's about the perseverance of Black femme-identified musicians over time throughout musical history in the United States, leading up to the innovations of Black femmes in electronic music and how people paved the way throughout history. And so it was a montage like visual. The visuals were like it's like collaged, found footage, archives. We used a lot of archives to create that piece and to tell that story. And so I'm all about kind of collaging material, even my own material, like my own life, and working that into something that people can experience, and also like just deciding like the outfits, what to wear, like costume design. I did costume design with theater in high school. And so that's also important to me, just having every piece kind of come together to tell a story and share a narrative.
And also, have you been doing like any collaborations or any collaborations from the past you maybe want to bring up?
Yeah, I mentioned one Analog Monster is a cool collaboration that I did with a Korean American artist, Toki Monster, who's from Los Angeles, Grammy nominated artist at that. We started off our career really together, kind of like, okay, we like don't know a lot of femme-identified beat makers that's also performing, but we know each other. So we supported each other and like opened some tours for some pretty big acts, like people like Bonobo. Early on, we were just like people had never seen like us like or women like just get on the stage. We had computers, we're using Ableton, we're using MIDI controllers, and they were just like, "What's going on?" This is like back in 2010. So we put together a project called Analog Monster, and it just re-released like onto all platforms last year. And so that's a cool project that I've done that it's just cool because it represents like women in music coming together. And since then, I've worked with a lot of different people, even like Jungle Pussy, like or um, Blue or King Britt or Innovate, just like people from the underground that also represent community and are leaders in music to a lot of different people. I'm glad that I get to work with just all types of artists. Um, and yeah, I get to also collaborate with filmmakers, directors. I was just sharing today that just a flashback of a commercial I did for Melina Masukas and Calvin Klein. Melina Masukas is the director of the movie Queen of Slim. She's also like, she directed Beyonce Formation and a lot of Beyonce videos. So I got to do sound design and some original composition for this commercial she did with Calvin Klein that had Burna Boy in it, Solange was in it, Jenny from Blackpink was in it, and I got to collaborate with her like one on one, offering the sound that made the commercial. And so that's also like stuff that I get to do is not necessarily like me collaborating with just musicians, but I get to collaborate with like all types of entities, brands, directors, um, and all types of people. It's really cool.
You're very versatile. And like, I wanted to also ask, like, is that maybe a word you would describe yourself, or is there one word, another word maybe, you would use to describe yourself as an artist or an individual or just your artistry?
Yeah, I guess you would say dynamic. Like I do feel like I possess a lot of range when it
Mhm.
comes to what I can provide for music. I don't think that I've even scratched the surface of what I could provide in music and just entertainment culture. I think that I'm like for what people see, they probably think I'm doing a lot, and I'm not even doing like what I really, really, really could do yet. Because that's how dynamic I am. I could really work with anyone. Like I feel so confident in my skills, especially now. I'm a professor. I'm a music professor. Um, so I'm so agile within my skill set now that I really could like go work with anyone from a rapper to a singer to an avant-garde electronic artist to like anyone. Like I feel like I could successfully contribute to any type of sound recording and give it a special touch. And so that's my hope that my dynamic range, with having and possessing a dynamic range, that I'm able to work on so many more different types of projects that people can't even like conceive of yet because they're probably thinking like, oh, you just want to work on rap or you just want to work on dance music. It's like, no, I want to work on like everything in the world. Like I really love music so much, and it's just a pathway for me to connect with people in the world.
Yes. And just like one more question if we have the time. Do you have any, I guess, advice for artists that are going to your direction of music?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest advice I would say is just really take time to get confident and gain confidence with your technique and your sound because as an emerging artist, you're going to be presented with a lot of different options. And if you aren't confident in your sounds, to just say, hey, well, thank you, I appreciate this. But this is how I do it, or this is how I see myself, or this is the direction I want to go into. If you have a hard time communicating that, then people will try to pull you in all different types of directions. And it's very interesting, especially when people see something in you, they're like, oh, you're the buzzing artist. You could be like this, you could be like that. And it's like, you want to be like yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You want to have these companies come to you because you have something that you cultivated that no one else can duplicate. And so finding that, taking the time to find that and just be confident in it and own it and grow your own world around it will keep things even like on a playing field for you as an artist. So not to just go with the flow or just go in any direction for what people think is hot, but for you to define what you think is hot and for you to like stand on that. It's really important to just take the time and have fun with that experience of creating that lane for yourself.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Susie. It's awesome having you here. Thank you again.
Yes, thanks, Tatiana. It's been great. And shout out to your show. When I was in college, I had a radio show, Brown Girl Radio. So it was super cool. And so I love student radio. So if anyone's listening, definitely just stay tuned, reach out. If you can make it into the club whenever I announce like the next club nights, come dance and stay creative.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.